see it is you've got two choices. You can either keep pretending like nothing bad's ever gonna happen to you, and then when it does, you're saying, uh-oh, or you can get ahead of what's coming so that when it does, not if, you're ready for it. And you're sitting pretty, sipping on Mai Tais next to the pool, working on that Caribbean suntan, because you got it covered. So folks, it's time for you to learn the truth about money. It's time for you to take back control of your money so that you are ready for what's about to happen. By doing that, you're setting yourself up for absolute success. No matter what comes your way, you're ready for it. And that's what I want for you, and I want to help you with that. So go to chrisnoggle.com and sign up for the Wealth Webinar. We do them every Wednesday at 1 p.m., and you need to be there because it's time.
For over 90 years, we've been crash testing our cars in the tireless pursuit of automotive safety. At Volvo, safety's been first since 1927. We've saved millions of lives with the invention of the three-point seatbelt in 1959. At Volvo, we've made driving safer for you and them. Visit safety.finleyvolvo.com to learn more.
So they say if you give a man a gun, he'll rob a bank. But if you give a man a bank, he'll rob everybody. The good news for you is Private Money Club runs solely on peer-to-peer relationships, which means no banks allowed. So finally, there's a community for real estate entrepreneurs where it is truly a win-win solution. This community is a place where you can connect with other lenders and other borrowers, and the end result's massive growth for you. You get to build your real estate empire, and you get to do it solving other people's problems. So if that sounds like a place you want to be, well then join us. Go to privatemoneyclub.com/Kelly. And if you want $500 off, just add the code Kelly500 and I'll knock $500 off the premier membership. We'll see you on the inside.
Welcome to the Kelly Cardenas podcast, where attitude is everything. On today's show, I'm very, very honored. I had to push this woman back about a month, because I was up in Utah. But one of my friends calls, it's like the bat signal goes out. Mr. Gary Spellman. When Gary Spellman calls me and says, "Hey, Kelly, you need to have this woman on the podcast because she is making such a huge impact in the world and in so many lives," you listen. I've learned to listen to Gary Spellman because he's honestly, one of the most influential people in my life, and he has been an incredible, incredible man in my family. But when I heard that and I reached out right away, and I tell you, the passion, the love came right through the phone. This is a celebrity makeup artist who's worked at Fashion Week in New York, in Paris, in the Maldives. She worked with Tony Robbins, countless celebrities all over the place, but then she turned her whole entire focus on shining the light on the people who don't have the voice, being the voice for that. And so it's amazing to be able to see someone in the professional beauty industry that is looking and saying, what impact can this beauty have on people at a cellular level? So I'm just honored, and I'm so excited to be able to have this young lady on the show. Please welcome celebrity makeup artist, Veronica Robles.
Hi, how are you?
It's good to see you.
Nice to see you too.
Let me ask you this right off the bat. You came from Texas. You cannot be a Dallas Cowboy fan.
You're like, no, you don't like them, huh?
Growing up in Texas, growing up Latina, we talked about it earlier before we started too. Was there a little spice in the family when you were growing up? Were mom and pop, were they a little? Did they have a little discipline to them?
Oh, for sure. We know this.
What kind of discipline?
Well, I think you know.
So
we were just talking about this.
I know, that's what I'm saying, because we
spankings here and there, you know.
Hey, what I want to let you all know that are out there listening and watching. Veronica told me that there was nothing off limits. Now, Veronica deals with a very, very serious matter. She's helping women to be able to get back on their feet. It's tell me the organization's name.
New Light, New Life.
New Light, New Life. And so we have a link, and I want you to go to that link. Actually, just pause the podcast right now, this episode right now, pause this. I don't ask this of many people on many episodes, or if ever, but I want you to pause me right now. I want you to go to the bio and I want you to click the link to be able to see the impact that Veronica is having. So again, we have a very serious matter and we're going to get into that, but it comes with it comes from a purpose that, you know, you started off in the professional beauty industry, right? So you started in Texas.
Yes.
And you get into that. Why makeup? You went to cosmetology, but then you went directly towards makeup. Why was that?
You know, honestly, it's something that I've always wanted to do since I was a little girl. I think I was like 3 or 4 years old when I would play with makeup, and I would watch beauty pageants on TV. And I always said, that's what I want to do. And you know, I went to a Catholic school. So I was taught in a Catholic school as a little girl, and there's no makeup in school. And so when my mom decided, you know, you guys are going to go to public school now, I mean, I was like, yes, I get to wear makeup. So I got out of, you know, I started going to school, and then they offered cosmetology, and I said, oh my gosh, I want to do this. I started playing with the makeup, and I knew it was something I would want to do. And I moved to Las Vegas, and when I got here, it just was like, you know, I just knew it was something I would do. And, you know, shortly after, I started working in a cosmetic department. And shortly after that, I get offered a job traveling as a national makeup artist. And I said, you know what? I love this. And it's just been in me since I was a little girl.
So tell me some of the things that you, like the lessons that you got from mom and pops that you were able to apply, because you said when you got to Vegas, I mean, things jumped off for you. Like things started to move very fast. I'm always skittish of these kind of things, because when someone says like, hey, it jumped off because of your character, because of your work ethic, and the things that you were willing to do that other people weren't willing to do. Can you let us into some of those things that were maybe simple and, you know, normal to you that really differentiated you from the pack?
Well, I'm a people person. I love people. I like to help people. And when I was working in department stores, I'm just very like, hi guys. And, you know, everybody knew me. And one day I was dealing with clients, and the clients would come in and they'd buy everything I would show them. And I was just like, I don't know how I do it. I just talk to them and they buy it. And so I slowly started growing within the company, and I just knew it was something I would always do. And then shortly after that, I said, you know, I need to go on my own. I need to do this on my own. And I've been doing makeup for 27 years. And I genuinely can tell you, I love what I do.
So
it is definitely something I love what I do.
Let me ask you this, Veronica, because when you see a person who has a bubbly personality, who is a people person, things like that, a lot of times, and this is just my own side, or that has the ability to be able to laugh, and we were laughing. I mean, my belly was hurting before we started recording. And that connection point, a lot of times that comes from trauma early on in our lives.
Indeed.
You might be, maybe you're the superhero that just came out, that was bubbly, that had that. Was there
that doesn't happen, you know, life.
Was there the traumas that, because for myself, like, I like to laugh. I like to keep things light, everything. But the reason why is because there was a lot of pain early on. Was there trauma? And if so, what was it?
The divorce. Hence why I left the Catholic school. As a child, I was in a Catholic school till about, I would say, 4th or 5th grade. And I knew that once they got a divorce, I would not be at that school anymore. And they pulled us out of the school. I ended up going to public school, but the divorce was super traumatic, super. And that was one of the things that really taught me to be a better mom, and taught me to say, you know what, I'm not going to do the things that I experienced. I mean, I have been divorced for 6 years, and I was married for over 20 years. I got a divorce 6 years ago. And it was something that I didn't want my kids to go through anything traumatic like what I went through as a child. I wanted my kids to have a happy upbringing, seeing their parents get along. We get along great. I have a great relationship with my ex because of that, because I believe that kids need to see a positive environment. They need to be happy, because my environment was less than happy, as a child. But I always said, it's okay, I'm going to be happy because everybody else is miserable, so I'm going to be happy. And I continued to live that life. And I always tell my kids, no matter what, put a smile on your face, be happy, try to find the joy in things, because life can be hectic. It can be a little scary, and you have to find a way to be happy, and bring joy to the world. And I think that's why this is so near and dear to me. The physical abuse I saw as a child, it's a trigger for me to see people get hurt. It's a huge trigger.
Take us to that. How old are you when the abuse is happening? Does it happen to you? How old are you, and what are you actually seeing? Because the reason why I ask this is because there's so many people out there that think they're alone. There's so many people out there that think like, because we'll hear the glaze over. We'll hear, oh wow, I had a rough upbringing, yada yada yada. I got into this business. I'm working my passion. I love people, and now I'm blessing people. And there's so many people out there that are in it right now and that are in the abusive situations that are thinking, but can you sit in that for a second? Like, let's talk about that part, because I'm not through it. So what age did the abuse start, or did you start seeing it? Did it happen to you? And what specifically was it?
Well, definitely. The abuse happened as a child, seeing the violence in the home. It is something that I still deal with in my current life now, where I can't even see two people get physical with each other where there's violence, because if I see violence, I physically get sick. I will literally throw up. That's how much it triggers me to see people get physically violent with each other. I just shared a story with you just a few minutes ago before we started, and it upset me so much that I called the police, because this little boy was standing, right outside, just on a street, standing next to a tree, and the little boy was crying, and he was scared. And I said to my daughter, I was on the phone with my daughter, I said, something's wrong with this little boy. And she's like, leave him alone, he's fine. And I said, no, something's wrong with this little boy. And I literally turned my car around and I went to get to the little boy. And just before I get to him, someone in his car, a parent, I would assume a mom or a dad, gets there, and the little boy goes to open the door. And as he goes to open the door, the little boy starts fighting where he's getting beaten down. And I was just like, oh my God, I literally start freaking out. So I called 911, and I park right next to the lady. The lady has no idea that, or whoever, it was a man or a woman. They had no idea. I was writing down their license plate, the type of car, and I drove behind them until they got to their home. And I was sat there and I was like, please send a police officer, because this child was beaten so bad. And I was like, no child fights back unless they're always beaten. So that is a huge trigger for me. Like, kids don't need to be beaten. Women don't need to be beaten. We're not an object that you can just beat on, and it's a huge problem for me. And yes, going back to my childhood, it happened a lot when we were kids.
What age? So what age did it start? And did it start with you seeing your mom go at your dad go at your mom? Or was it your parents coming towards you as kids?
It was my mom and my dad, the violence between them. And it still, it continued till I was about 9 or 10 years old, and they got a divorce. And from that point on, I kind of was relieved when they got a divorce, because I knew, most kids, pray their parents don't get a divorce. But I was like, whew, it's done. It's done. No more fighting. The chaos is done, because we saw it as children. And,
what age did you Veronica, what age did you register it? Because a lot of times as a child, you think like, this is normal behavior, right? This is just normal. This is what people do. So take us to a place, give us the age, set the room for us, and then take us through one of the scenarios that you saw. The reason why I say this is because, again, most of the time, people who are in it, and there's people out there listening right now that are in it, that are like, I'm alone. Like, this doesn't happen to anybody else. Or they maybe have gone through it and they've pushed it so far down that they've become the bubbly person, that they've got involved with a cause and they don't know why.
Yeah.
And so set the stage for us if you can, because you told me nothing's off limits.
Yeah.
Set the stage for us. How old are you? What does the room look like? And what is happening?
One story I can tell you. I was at the school that I went to, which was a Catholic school, and I'm in the car, and my mom and my dad are fighting over us. And as they're sitting there fighting over us, we're in the car. He is banging on her window, and she is fighting him off. And next thing you know, she goes to throw the van on top of him to run him over because they're fighting so much. And I sat there and I said, oh my God, my parents are out of control. Like, this is out of control. And we were little kids. We were in, I think I was like in kinder or first grade, something like that. And I remember looking back and I said, I remember these moments being like, wow, my parents are just so violent towards each other. And when the divorce was happening, I just knew that it just was something that was needed for them because it was so bad. They always had these fights and it was always happening. You know, being a little girl sitting in the car thinking to myself, A, you're going to kill my dad. Or B, he is going to kill you because all you guys do is fight over, you know, betrayals and cheating and things like that. And, you know, and then I go through it in my life as an adult. I never went through any physical violence in my marriage, but the verbal abuse, those things were very real. And I always, you know, I didn't think there was a way out. And what took me into the field of, you know, listening to the Tony Robbins and the Dr. Wayne Dyer was because I needed something for me to be okay. And that's why I started going into that field. I was driving my kids crazy listening to every podcast, every video for, you know, with Dr. Wayne Dyer, Tony Robbins. I was literally just immersed into it. And I just wanted to heal myself from what I had been through as a child.
So take us to, let's move on. Like, I want to move on, but I want to move on in the timeline. You see this as a kindergartner. What age do your parents get divorced?
I was about 9 years old.
Okay, at 9 years old, they get divorced. You're relieved. You're solaced. Are you really close with your brothers and sisters, or is there?
Yeah, I'm very close with my brothers and sisters.
And this drew you closer. These situations, you go through that. Most of the time, this just a lot of times you see a kid that grows up in that is then attracted to boys that do the same thing. Did you go through this?
Yeah, they say you marry your father, right? Women usually will marry their father, whether they like it or not. You know, it was, for me, it was one of those things where I wanted that assertive, strong man that was going to be, you know, just take care of you, right? And I sure did. I married a man just like my father in so many aspects, just the grooming, the way he took care of himself. He was very much like my father. But I never had the strength. And it didn't take till I was 39 years old for me to start finding my voice. I'm 45. And I was 39 years old when I decided I'm going to walk away. But I knew that the moment I walked away, I was walking away with nothing. I walked away with $300 and 3 kids. I know. And it was tough.
So Veronica, how long before you walked away, in working with women for 30 years, it's amazing because I got the chance to be able to have conversations with women 3 years before they made the move, but they knew the move was coming and they were planning, you know, for it, which I applaud a woman for doing.
Yeah.
Take us into the mentality of a woman that has been married for 20 years. You know, you're walking away with nothing. You got 3 kids.
Yeah.
What's in your heart? What's in your mind at the time? And because there are women right now that have children that are listening. Sure. That are in those situations and they're saying like, I think I should stay, Veronica. I think I need to stay because it'll be easier for me right now.
Right. Yeah. Well, I've heard those stories many times. It's easier to stay, but it's not. It's harder to walk away. It takes courage to walk away, but I will be honest with you, it's the best decision of your life because you grow as a person. I'll never forget, I was told once by a woman who said to me, um, I can't walk away. I don't know how to do anything. And I said, I left my home with $300. I had no idea what credit was. I had no idea how to build it because I never handled my finances. He handled the finances. So when I walk away, I'm learning, gosh, how do you pay a bill? How do I get a house? No one would give me a house. I was trying to rent a house. They would tell me, well, you don't have good credit. And I'm like, wait, why? What's wrong with my credit? I had no idea that there was all these problems. And I had to find a way to repair my own credit. I had to find a way to say, okay, how are you going to learn how to make your own money? And I was a makeup artist. So I already knew that I had a job, right? But when you don't know how to survive, you don't know how to get ahead. And so at 39 years old, people are like, were you living under a rock? I'm like, like, kind of. I was in a little bubble. And now, you know, you feel like it's hard to get out, and it really is, because it took me a really long time to walk away. But when I finally did it, I felt that sense of relief. I knew it was going to be hard. I knew my kids were going to struggle, but I literally surrounded my kids with so much love and light that I was always talking to them about God, and my kids are sick of it. I always tell them we have a God day because we're always putting on, you know, I put on God movies and I talk to them. I'm like, you know, we have to keep ourselves happy and bring in good energy in this home so that we can be happy. We can't allow all the negativity to surround us. We have to bring in the good things. And my kids are just like, now they always say yes, you know. Like I was telling them when I drop them off this morning, I said, make good choices. They're like, can you not do that when the window is open? It's like, and I'll say to them, you know, I'll say stuff to them like just something silly. And my kids are just like, yes, Mom. I'll have a blessed day or whatever. You know, they always laugh at me because they say, you're just silly, Mom. I'm like, I know. I just want you guys to have a good day. And always, you know, for me, God's so important. And I live my life that way. And I speak it every single day. What I speak is what it is, you know? So
what became so clear now that you're on the other side, when you look back, and I've seen this happen before, and I'm an advocate, huge advocate of marriage. I'm very happily married, but I'm also divorced too. And so I've been divorced. So I'm not judging divorce. But I have seen times where there'll be the man in the relationship, and I'm going to give guys out there that are listening a hard time right now. I'll see them put things in play that the woman won't see at the time. But they're putting things in play, so it's the scenario that you dealt with, which was very hard to leave. They feel like they don't have an option, but that was created because the man did it piece by piece and put it in line. What things do you see so clearly now that you didn't see then? And if you could give that kind of blueprint or map as something for women right now to look out for in their relationships.
I think the manipulation, that's the biggest thing.
Manipulation. What
manipulation?
What manipulation?
You're not going to make it. You'll be back. You need me to survive. And I'm like, no, actually, I don't. Let me show you how it's done. It's the manipulation, the lies, the betrayal, who's going to take you with 3 kids? I don't need anybody to take me with 3 kids because I am strong and independent and I can make it on my own. And even if no one ever comes into my life, I've got it. I've got me and my 3 kids. And it's really believing that you can handle it because we always can. It's just that fear. The fear is always what we lead with, right? Instead of trusting. You really have to trust.
What about the specifics, like the little things, the little actionable items? And this is reverse, right? Because most of the people ask actionable items so you can live a prosperous life or whatever. That's not where I'm going. What I'm going with is I want to know the little things, like, and I see this a lot of times where it's like, oh, we don't have to have your account, or you don't have to have an account, or you don't have to have credit cards, you don't have to have it in your name. I got it in mind. We're married, we're good. And I'm not saying that's always going to be bad.
Yeah.
But what are those little actionable items that now when you look back on your marriage, you were like, wow, these things were put in play and it caused a more of a challenge for me to leave when I was ready to leave?
I will say, I think the things that I just, thinking that you can't make it on your own, that now you're just like, I can totally do it. Like, I think people think, well, I don't have enough money. Listen, I left with $300. $300. And it was tough. It's not easy. I'm not going to say it's easy. It's definitely not easy. But it is definitely, that's why there are resources, which I had no idea there were at the time. I had no idea there was so many resources to be able to get on your feet as far as, for you to get started. And I mean, I had my job, and luckily, I mean, I was blessed in the fact that I actually have a career that helped me and blessed me. And shortly after, I will tell you, the moment I walked away, my career took off. It literally took off. I was hired on to go do Fashion Week in Paris, then Fashion Week New York, then again to Paris, and back and forth to Maldives. And I said, wait a minute. It's like everything just took off the moment I walked away from him, because I needed to get away from that negative energy that was holding me down. But if I would have believed in myself before that, I probably would have done so much more. I get hired on to do big shows here in Las Vegas right after that, which allowed me to be able to get a house, allowed me to start moving on with my life, which I didn't think I could, because you're just like, wait, this is all there is. This is all there's gonna be. And that's not true, because we all know that the moment that you put yourself in a different light, you're literally growing, you're expanding. But because when you're in a dark place, you don't feel you can get out. You're like, no, this is as good as it's going to be. But that's not true. And we all know that's not true.
So let's talk. You were talking about being in the dark, and you're talking about growing and having the light and things like that. So let's talk about the seed, because this is the part that most people won't talk about and they don't go to, right? Mm-hmm. And so what I want you to understand, like if you're listening out there, you're watching. If you're watching, smash the subscribe button, because my son will think I'm cool on YouTube if I have more subscribers. If you're listening, I want you to write a review, because then my son will think I'm cool then too. So I'm just trying to be cool to my son and my daughter. But the part that most people don't talk about is the seed, right? A lot of times we plant our own seed and then pray that God will bless them, as opposed to praying and asking God, which seed should I plant? If you were to look back in this situation with your marriage, now obviously you got great kids from it, as a blessing, all those things. What things do you see so clearly now that you would have said, maybe this relationship ain't for me from the beginning?
Oh, I know exactly.
And how early did you see the signs? And what were they? Like, tell us the specific signs. Like, I saw him do X and I just said, oh, but he's cute, so I'll move on.
Yeah. No, when I was trying to have my second child, so there's a huge gap between my kids. My daughter's going to be 22. My son, Andrew's going to be 13. And my youngest is going to be 12. And when I was trying to get pregnant for the second time, and there was a huge gap, and I couldn't get pregnant. And I was like, no, maybe this will save my marriage if I have another baby. So I literally go and have infertility treatments. Then I get pregnant and I miscarry that baby. And I was like, okay, is this God's way? No, it just wasn't a pregnancy that needed to happen. So I continue, like, I'm going to have a baby. So I have another baby. And, during that pregnancy, I found out my husband was having an affair. And I was like, oh, well, he didn't mean it. It's fine. He's going to stop talking to her because we have kids, and he's not going to just, uproot this marriage. He's just going to stay, that was my thought. And I have the baby. Then after I have the baby, shortly after, I found out he's still talking to somebody. But by then, guess who goes to the doctor and says, I want to go on birth control. And the doctor says, well, we have to do a pregnancy test to see if you're pregnant. And I said, well, why? I said, I just had a baby 3 months ago. No, we're good. And he says to me, we still need to see. He gives me the pregnancy test. Guess who's pregnant again? And I said, oh my God, okay, I'm definitely going to be in this marriage for a hot minute because I'm pregnant again. I have that baby, and again, something else happens. And that was my determining factor that I said, even though I have kids and I've been dealing with this, and I should have done it 13 years ago, 14 years ago, I still stayed because I said, I don't think I can. I don't think I can make it on my own with just my daughter. And I should have done it. But it's one of those moments where you're just like, it wasn't the right time. And I think it's now was the time. And so 6 years ago I did. And it went through a period of me not really talking to my ex because I was upset with him. But then I had to realize that there was a reason why he had to do that. And there was a reason God left me in that home for so long that I needed, to learn from it. And it made me stronger. And now I can assure you none of that would ever happen because I would never let that happen again.
So how does it, like, when you gain this strength, when you do this stuff, and I dealt with this in my marriage, my wife now, Brooklyn, who I love more than anything in the world. When we first started off, she was a very independent woman. She was taught from a dad that was like, look, she had, her best friend had a problem with her one time, and he was like, invite her over. You guys fight in the backyard, and then you'll handle it. And then, she grew up with a very strong mom, and as an independent woman. When we got together, there was a few challenges because I came from a side where my mom wanted to make sure that my dad felt like the man. Then I meet this woman who's awesome. I love her. I'm in love. I'm moving forward. And she's like, I don't need you. And so we had an adjustment that way. How will you adjust in the future to be able to, work? Now my wife is like, she knows that I need to feel like the man, even though she could do it on her own. But that was an adjustment. And sometimes that causes a division in a relationship. How will you deal with that as you move forward?
Well, I do believe we all need our better half, right? We really do. And we need that person that's going to walk with us. And you can't demasculize a man. You can't take away their strength and say, oh, I don't need you, because we know you can't do that. But at the same time, there are things that there's boundaries. You just don't cross those boundaries. There needs to be loyalty, honesty, trust. Everything needs to be transparent in a relationship. And, I think you can work together. I think that's something that for me, it hasn't jaded me to a point where I'm like, oh, no, man, no. No. I'm not like that. But I will tell you that I do feel like now I have my voice and my strength where I would never allow somebody to do that to me again. Where before I was like, no, this is as good as it's going to get. And that's not true. You know what I mean? But I think it takes time. It takes time. It takes a lot of life beating you up, for a lack of a better word, that you're just like, life really just takes a toll on you, but it's there to teach you to become stronger. Because that's what makes you grow. Anytime you go through heartache, that's what makes you stronger, and you learn to grow as a person.
Veronica, I want you to look into the camera, and I want you to talk to the woman who's in a relationship, an abusive relationship right now. She's in an abusive relationship. Her man has put things in place that caused her to think that she's less than, and that she can't leave, and that she has to stay. And maybe she doesn't have a bank account. Maybe she doesn't have credit. Maybe she doesn't have a job. She has children involved, and the man is not only physically abusive, verbally abusive. And what would you say to that woman?
I would tell her that it's time for her to walk away, love herself. There's always a light at the end of the tunnel. There really is. And if you walk away and believe in yourself and have faith that God's got your back, there's nothing that he can't do to help you. And I truly believe in my heart that if you want a new beginning, you can have it. There's nothing that can stop you. There is no limit to how far you can go in life. There really isn't.
What I love about people like you, Veronica, is the purpose. And the reason why I want to get the backstory is because that's why it's so impactful what you're doing with New Light and New Life. Because anyone could be a part of an organization, but when you live it, that's why I asked, is because most of the time if there's a person helping hurt people, most of the time it's a hurt person that's helping those people. Right.
Yeah, yeah.
And this is
I've been crying this whole time.
This is real. And so there's a time you leave, things start going well. It's not all roses. And I want to encourage the woman that she just spoke to that's in a challenging relationship. You're not going to walk away and walk onto a red carpet. You're not going to walk away and walk onto a plane going to Paris to do Fashion Week. That's not going to happen. There's going to be challenges. And when I say this, my mom went through it. My parents got separated. My mom walked away. And when she did, we went into hiding in Lompoc, California. And most of my friends are like, why did your mom always drop you at the bus stop? Because we couldn't be seen by my dad. Yeah. But what I want to talk about is there was an experience while you're doing all this celebrity, you're doing this beauty, and a lot of people see beauty on the outside, and especially being in the professional beauty industry for so long, a lot of people would be like, this is tough because I just feel like I'm working on just vanity. It ain't vanity, guys. The professional beauty industry is touching the heart and the soul, but there was something that touched your heart and your soul while you're working on these celebrities, while you're working at this highest level in the makeup business. And it changes everything for you. Take us to it.
So I was working an event, and this woman that you never in a million years would have thought was who she would turn out to be. This woman comes up to me and she says, your work is beautiful. I'd like to hire you to do makeup for about 10 girls. And I looked at her, I said, sure, no problem. I said, when is it for? And she told me the dates. I mean, this lady was so prim and proper. And I just thought, okay, wonderful, no problem. I show up to do makeup, and there was 10 women. They were all from the Middle East. None of them really spoke English, but 2 at the very end, I end up finding out that 2 of them spoke English. And the lady's like, you do their makeup and you just go home. That's it. I said, okay, great. I start doing the makeup, never thinking anything of it. And this happened 12 years ago.
Where is this at? Where are you at?
Here in Las Vegas.
Okay.
Here in Las Vegas. And so as I'm sitting there doing their makeup, no one's really talking. And 2 of the girls towards the end, one of them looks at the other one and she says, I'm scared, with very broken English. And at that point, I could see the fear in their eyes. And at that point, I was just like, okay, why are you scared? And the girl looks at me and she says like that, she wouldn't answer. And the other girl goes, it's fine. It's going to be fine, you know? And I, at that moment, was like, I don't feel good about this whole thing. And I knew at that moment that these women, all of them were being sold that night. And I called one of my good friends that's with the police department, and I told her about it, and I told her where they were. And, you know, I don't know what ended up happening with it, but we knew that day these women would be sold. They were wearing all red dresses, and it was a red Dior dress, and they were going to a celebrity party. That's all we knew. And that moment was one of those moments where I was like, there's so much fear in these women's eyes. There's so much fear. And I knew that they were being sold that night. And, you know, I spoke to one of my good friends, and she says, unfortunately, that's the kind of stuff that happens, you know? And I said, yeah, but it shouldn't. But it shouldn't, because we're not for sale. You know, women are not for sale. And, you know, and she's just like, yeah, I know. She says, this is why we're constantly trying to fight that so that it doesn't happen anymore. And, you know, right after that, I started really working my mission on helping women, helping them to reincorporate back into society. Once they get released and, you know, they're, you know, taken out of trafficking, it was like, how can I help them? What can I do? My talents are to do hair and makeup. What else can I do? And I used to do styling for shoots and work on these amazing things. But I was like, what can I do? I have 2 hands and my hands can only do so much. What can I do? And I started realizing that it was something that I wanted to do, was to create an organization to help them and give more than what I knew. Because I was like, okay, what did Veronica need to survive in life? She needed to learn how to manage her finances because I didn't know how to do that. So I needed financial literacy. I needed to learn how to build credit. So I was like, what are we going to give? Building credit. Why? Because I needed that. We needed wardrobe. So we're giving them wardrobe. We're giving them hair. We're giving them grooming, etiquette, how to speak, how to interview, things that are really important, but more importantly, to work on themselves, to love themselves, change those limiting beliefs, change the emotional side that caused them to stay there, because a lot of it was lack of love. Maybe they came from a situation where they were in a foster home and they ran away and then they started getting trafficked. Like, there's so many scenarios on why people go into trafficking, because it happens where they're taken from a party. And, those are the things that cause a lot of these young girls to fall into this. It's not like they said, oh, I'm going to go and, start doing this to myself. No, it happens where they go somewhere and they're taken at that point. I mean, in other countries, like, that movie that just came out, that's a different scenario where those are babies that are taken. Those are different situations. And, for me, it's something that it's near and dear to my heart. And as I talk about it and I just light up because it's so important.
How can somebody get involved? Like, when you're talking about it, is it a facility there in Las Vegas that the women go to? Take us through that, because we talked about it before we started recording, and this is such a heavy subject. It really is. Like, I went to the beach this morning, and I was praying this morning, and I was asking, I was like, Lord, can you just bring me joy today? Because we're going to be talking about something heavy. But we also talked about, most of the time people shy away from the heavy because they're like, oh man, I don't know if I could carry that. Then I invite you out there, make it light some way. Like, when I say make it light, I get a chance to talk to Veronica. We chatted before we started, and I was like, she is very sensitive to children getting whooped. And I was like, Veronica, you grew up in a Latina family, you got whooped, and Veronica started laughing. And then we started opening up, and we started having the dialogue. But there's so many people, it's heavy, and they stay away from it. I invite you, get in touch with the people, connect with the people. The people will make the story something a little bit lighter where you can actually consume it. But take us into the facility. Where's the facility at? And kind of like take us on a tour mentally on what the woman would experience, like from the time that they walk in to the time that they leave.
So basically, in our facility, we don't have a facility at this moment because we're in the process of getting everything up and running and getting it operational. So we don't have a facility at this moment. We're still in the process of getting it. We're praying that we're raising funds right now for it, but we're praying that once we get that going, we're hoping within the next month or so, we can get it up and running. Once you walk into the facility, it's going to be very welcoming, but a lot of it is working on getting them scheduled for specific classes. Like, we're going to start working on them emotionally, start working on their mind, body, and soul. Then we're actually going to help them with, what do you want to do? Do you want to get a career? Do you want to get something to fall back on? Do you want a job? Let's get you a job. We're going to give them the opportunities. And then the final bow on the whole thing is to give them a transformation, a physical transformation where they don't have to feel like they did when they were being trafficked or when they were, living a different life. So we're going to cut their hair, color their hair. We're going to help with teaching them how to apply their own makeup so they know how to look appropriate for interviews or just a new life. It's a new life. We're giving them a new opportunity for a new life. And that's what we're going to do within our facility. Our facility is going to encompass everything that's needed for them.
So talk about too, as far as relationship wise, because the reason why you and I got a chance to be able to connect is because of a phenomenal, influential guy named Gary Spellman, who is unbelievable, has a PLH foundation. I'm a huge fan. The Ultimate Face Makeup or Ultimate Face Cosmetics. And he's just an incredible human being. But it's amazing because of some of the people that you met, during along the way, those are the people that are helping to be able to champion this stuff, the Tony Robbins of the world, the Gary Spellmans of the world. Can you talk to that about, those kind of relationships and how much they can impact your life?
I have to tell you, I met Gary Spellman through a fluke. Okay. I was in Nashville, a friend of mine, and it was actually pretty traumatic. I met Gary through a situation. One of his good friends was married to one of my great friends, Emma. And at this event, she says, I want you to meet people. We're doing the CMAs in Nashville. And she's like, I want you to come out. And I said, sure. I go to the CMAs. I had a great time. I spent 10 days with them in Nashville. I met Gary when we went to a bike run. It was just fantastic, right? I genuinely bonded with Gary so much. I don't know why. It was like instant connection. We just became really good friends at that point. And I never really spoke to him again. 2 days after I get home, the unfortunate situation happened where my friend Emma lost her life. Her husband murdered her. And I was devastated because I'd known Emma for a long time and I loved her. And, I genuinely loved her husband too. And they both lost their life that day. And again, a domestic violence situation. And it was so traumatic for me. I spent days crying because I couldn't believe that I had just been in their house. Was I in their house for a reason? What was my reason for being there? And was he going to do it while I was there? Why did it happen? Like, it was so hurtful for me. But the one good thing that came out of it was my friendship with Gary. And I never spoke to him again for a few years till I started this organization. And I kid with Gary because I tell him, I said, Gary, I had a dream about you. And he's like, you're so funny. But I did. I kept hearing his name in my dream. And I said, I got to call Gary Spellman. And I looked his number up and I said, oh my God, I still have his phone number. So I sent him a message. I said, you're going to think I'm crazy. I said, but I found your phone number and I've had dreams with your name. I said, so I had to call you. And he was like, well, that's a compliment. And I said, Gary, I'm just telling you, there's a reason for it. And I told him about the organization. He's like, I'm in, I'm all in, whatever you need, I'm in. He goes, this is great what you're doing. So I love Gary. He's a good guy. He genuinely works from his heart. And that's who I like to surround myself with. People who really want to make a difference, who really love people and want to see a difference. That's why.
I think one of the big things is to get to know people before you ever need them. And I think a lot of times people will do the due diligence when the deal is about to happen, as opposed to getting to know the people and becoming friends and getting to know them before you would ever need anything at all. And that's a massive one.
Yeah.
I want to rewind a little bit too, because I think that, there's so many women out there that the abuse is on the way, but they don't see it. And then when they have a woman like yourself that has gone through, when you look back, you're like, oh, that's a sign. That's a little thing. Like, I had this talk with my daughter. She had a little boy in her life, and the little boy was like, he's a nice kid. And then she talked to one of her friends, and he got mad. And she was just talking to her friend, and he got mad. And I told her, I said, red flag. And she's like, what do you mean, Daddy? I said, red flag. I said, you don't fix jealous. You ain't going to fix jealous. And she's like, well, but I could see that why. And I said, no. I said, stop for a second. Do you have any feelings for that boy? The boy that you talked to, the friend? She's like, no. And I said, well, then you were doing nothing wrong. So don't justify his actions. And I said, honestly, just be aware. It's a red flag. Yeah. Talk to us, and not even us. Talk to the women out there, the abused women. And if you're listening right now and you haven't told somebody, tell somebody. Talk to the abused women right now about the little tiny things that most women never, ever see until they're so deep in it and the abuse is happening that it's being drawn in, or that seeds are being planted so the abuse can happen and then it can be covered up.
Oh my God, yes, absolutely. How many times, in situations, especially like with victims of human trafficking, but I love you. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to hit you. You know, how many times do women go through that kind of a situation and it's not love? If someone has to put their hands on you and or hurt you physically, emotionally, verbally is probably the worst part, right? Because with verbal abuse will eventually come the physical abuse.
What's the
But the
verbal
verbal
cues?
abuse,
What's the verbal cues though, Veronica? And take us back to your experience, like your experience. So, you know, what were the verbal cues that you saw as a little kid, mom to dad, dad to mom, and then what you saw in your relationships going forward as far as the specifics?
well, as a child, I always wondered I always heard them arguing, and with the arguing, I'd always hear like, "You're beneath me," and just the words that they used towards each other were just so horrific as a child that I always knew something was coming. I knew a fight was coming right after it because of the language they would use towards each other. And as an adult, in my relationship, I would hear words that he would use, and he now says, "I can't believe how I used to treat you. I can't believe how I never saw how bad I was towards you and how I was with my kids." And it was at that moment when I remember my daughter coming to me and saying, "Mom, it really hurts me to see my brothers ask me questions about, well, how do I stop, being a certain way because of things that their dad would tell them." And it took a lot of those moments for me to be like, I have to walk away because I can't allow somebody to damage that little soul, because that child will grow up to be a man and he will treat his wife that way.
Mm.
And I have to have the courage to never allow somebody to hurt my kids and walk away from it, because the moment you walk away, you're saving your child's life. And I'm still, dealing with the emotional, baggage that my kids have to deal with. And I still, to this point, I'm still dealing with it, but I'm always working with them. And I always lead with love. Love is the one and only way to heal a heart. And that's what I do. I'm constantly leading with love. And I know I'm corny, and I know my kids are like, "Mom, you're so annoying." I'm like, "I don't care. I love you." It's always leading with love, because that's what they need to heal from so much trauma. And I will say that, for women that are out there that, don't know where to start, there's always a way. You have to save your kids from seeing that. My kids make fun of me because I tell them no horror movies. And they're just like, "Mom, really?" And I'm like, "Your eyes are the windows to your soul. And if you protect your eyes from seeing things and your ears from hearing things, you guys will literally live a happier life." And they make fun of me because they're like, "My eyes are the windows to my soul." I'm like, it's true. Please take care of yourselves so that you can live a happier life. And I do believe that if these women that are out there that are watching us or listening to this, if you're in a situation where you're in a bad situation, a bad marriage, violent situation, you will survive. And it's better to walk away while you still can.
Mm-hmm.
And my friend Emma couldn't.
Mm.
And she's not here anymore, and her kids saw the final product. Her kids saw her go through her last breath, and it's sad, and no one should have to see that. Your kids should never have to experience that.
Veronica, if we could take you back to being 9 years old, like the little
Yeah.
girl, and you had the courage and confidence that you do right now,
Mm-hmm.
and your two parents were sitting in front of you right now, what would you say to them?
I would tell my parents to walk away, friends. I would tell my parents it's time for you guys to love each other enough to walk away, because the violence is so much and the verbal abuse is so much that there's no reason for it. And we, kids pray that their parents never get a divorce. I couldn't believe I would pray for them to get a divorce, because I knew that if they got away from each other, they would be happier people. But, they just didn't. And I would literally tell my parents, if it was me, I would tell my parents, you guys can be friends. And, I had to tell you, everybody tells me all the time, they're like, I can't believe you can be good friends with your ex after everything you've been through. I'm like, you know why? Because we all make mistakes and we all have to grow. And every child grows up to be a man, and it's only a damaged man that causes these kind of problems in their marriage. It's a person that has actually been through heartache, and it's not his fault. It's not his dad's fault. It's just the upbringing. That's all. And I mean, luckily, I never went through the physical violence, but still, the verbal abuse is just as bad, right?
Well, it's incredible because what my mama always told me, she said that God's going to build a man, a husband, and then a father.
Yeah.
And we were working in our men's group on Tuesday, and I was talking with the guys, and I said, and she was very specific that he was going to build them in that order.
Yeah.
Man, husband, father.
Yeah.
But a lot of times in our society, we get it out of line.
Yeah.
So we haven't built the man yet, and we instantly become a father. We become a father, and then we become a husband.
Yeah.
And what I was telling the guys, and what God just opened up to me, was if you're having challenges being a father, stop for a second and go work on being a man, or go work on being a husband. If you're having the challenge being a husband, stop and go work on being a man. And it'll always bring it back. It always is able to bring it back to that point. From that little girl who, almost every little girl, I would say every little girl, searches for the love of their daddy.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
What would you say to your pop? He's sitting in front of you right now, coming from little girl, daddy's little girl, unfiltered. What would you say to him?
It was a tough relationship with him because I didn't have him in my life after the divorce. And, I was raised by an incredible man. After their divorce, my mom married a man who to me, is my father. And he passed away 2 years ago. But the interesting thing about the whole thing is that he taught me that love that was needed. And he taught me what true love was. So I had the pleasure to be with him the last 10 days of his life and to really take care of him and be there for him. Oh, I'm going to cry. And he just was such an amazing human being that he taught me what real love was. And that's why when I said once they got a divorce, it was amazing to be raised by him because he taught us values, morals, love, the things I always looked for in a man. I wanted a man who was moral, who had love for God. I wanted a man, but I ended up going with my biological father, thinking, oh, if I go with this man, this is what, this just made sense, And, honestly, my ex he's actually a really good man, but he made bad choices. And, again, like I said, we all make mistakes, right? But I will tell you, I learned so much from that upbringing. But my biological father, I had an opportunity to go to his funeral. And the pastor at the church says to me, would you like to say a few words? And I said, I can't say any words. I said, because I don't really know him like that. And he says, well, he was a good member of society and he was this and he was that. I said, well, I'm glad he was, because he needed to redeem himself from so much hurt that he inflicted in the world. And I said, and I'm glad to hear that he was like that for other people, because he wasn't like that for us. He wasn't a good father. The beatings were horrible for us. And when you say the chancla, it's true. It was like we really got spankings, and it was not good. It was not pretty. But I will tell you, I had an opportunity to forgive him and let him go in peace, because he passed away as well, same 2 years ago. And I just told him, I said, I just wish that, I would have had an opportunity to get to know you better, because I think we could have been good friends, even though you're my biological father. But, it's fine. God does things for a reason. And, if he would have been a better man, I think we could have had a great relationship, but he had lessons to learn. We all have lessons to learn. And God was preparing me for this moment because I knew that I wasn't just put here to do makeup. That's not true. I was put here for a greater purpose. And whatever that purpose was, I kept saying, why? I kept saying, why are you putting all these millionaires in my life? Like all of my clients are like affluent clients. And I said, why? Why? Why was I put in this situation? Why did I have to go 12 years ago to work on these women? Why did I continue that journey up until now? What were you preparing me for? I never had the answer till now. Now I know what my answer was. It was to really make an impact, to transform women across the world, because it's not just Las Vegas. I want to open up a facility in every city across the country. And that's going to be my mission. I'm going to do it because I feel like there's so much need, especially in towns, in places where there's just not enough funding. El Paso is near and dear to my heart. I love El Paso. Most people are like, El Paso. I'm like, you know what? It's a good place. They need money. They need help. And we need to help them. There's such a problem there, and no one takes resources there. I want to take resources there. I want to take opportunities for women and help as many women as we can.
Well, now's the time when you're hearing this, if you're listening or watching, to get involved. Check the link in the bio, click the link in the bio and check it out. It's New Light, New Life. And Veronica, you're unbelievable. It's incredible because a lot of times people would just say, I mean, you're one of the top in the business in the makeup space, and they would just be like, I'm good. Like I work on the celebrity side. I'm highly sought after, so I'm good. I'm just going to take care of myself. But you've turned that around and said, hey, I want to help. I want to give a hand up, which I think is amazing. I started the podcast because of people like you that are icons of what I feel, in this world. I did it because I wanted my two kids, Maddox and McKenna, to never worship idols, but be inspired by icons. And
Exactly.
So when I started it, I really wanted to show them that, people like you, icons, are not superheroes. They're just human beings that have an amazing story, that are in line with their purpose and have crazy work ethic. So what advice would you give to Maddox and McKenna? And if you could use both their names, that would be awesome.
Absolutely. Maddox and McKenna. The advice I would give you is for you to really follow your passion, lead with your heart, love what you do, and help as many people as you can. We all have special gifts, and that gift is not a coincidence. I call it a God incidence. He put it into your hands for a reason, and you have to help as many people as you can. No matter what it is, I wouldn't idol anybody, and I don't. I really don't. I think people are extraordinary. Someone said to me yesterday, if you want $1 billion right now, what would you do? I said, I would fund my organization across the United States. I would literally continue my mission because that is who I am. I would continue to bless people. I kept thinking, I would buy a house for this person. I would buy a car for that person. Why? Because I know they need it. And as much as you can do for the world, always try to lead with your heart and help as many people as you can. That's what I would do.
Veronica, you're better than advertised, and you're advertised very, very well. For those of you out there listening and watching, to experience the podcast live, we created the Vibe Room. And the Vibe Room is, it's taking people like a Veronica, and you actually get to be in the studio audience and be able to experience her. Imagine spending time not only hearing this interview with an incredible icon, but also being able to sit down with them after the show and have a conversation, come up close. That's what the Vibe Room is. The next Vibe Room is October 5th. It's in Salt Lake City. The tough part about it is there's only 60 tickets and 45 of them are already spoken for. So there's only 15 tickets available to this. And the reason why I wanted to create the Vibe Room is because I wanted to create an environment where it was the live podcast. It was the heart of Oprah, the intellect of David Letterman, and the comedy of Jimmy Fallon. Mash those together and put it in a speakeasy club in Salt Lake City, and you got the Vibe Room. The next one, October 5th. Look forward to having all you guys out. Veronica, you have been absolutely phenomenal. I want to thank all our sponsors too, and and I want to thank everyone who's been listening and rocking with the podcast, because it helped us to get in the top 1% globally. And my hat's off. My heart is full. Our sponsors, check out Mr. Chris Nagel with Money School. Check out Jim DiGiulio with Volvo Cars, Finley Volvo Cars of Las Vegas, Poppington's Popcorn, because if it's not Poppington's, it's just basic. It's just popcorn. But I love you all for listening. And Veronica, it has been my absolute pleasure having you on the show.
Thank you. It's my pleasure to be here. And I'm just grateful for everything you're doing. You're doing a great job. I love listening to your podcast. They're amazing.
So Veronica, tell the people how they can get involved. Because again, when I go back to it as we finish up today, as I go back to it, a lot of times people say it's a heavy subject. We're talking about human trafficking. We're talking about getting women, battered women back into the workforce, all these things. I want to be involved, but I don't know how. How can they get involved, and how can they, help to champion this cause that you have created?
They can get involved in so many ways, obviously donating, and he included the link as well. But volunteering, we would love to get volunteers to be involved. We're going to need help. We need to spread the cheer and help people, and, whatever you can help with. Some people will say, oh, we can donate handbags, whatever you can help with, we're there. And they can go to our organization, which is www.newlife.org.
We've got the link, and what we're going to do too. I'm a owner of a financial literacy company for hairdressers, and so what we're going to do is it's called Dollar Camp, and it helps to be able to create financial literacy, which creates financial freedom for hairdressers. And what we're going to do is we'll donate one of the books for every single person who comes to the facility.
Thank you.
Does that sound
That's
good?
Amazing. Thank you so much. That's so needed. See what I mean? It's so needed.
Well, we absolutely love you guys. Check out the Vibe Room. Check that out. Secret Knock is coming up March 19th through the 21st. It's the #1 networking conference in the world that you can't go to unless you're invited. But your boy here is the co-host, and he might know somebody who could get you invited. Reach out to me. Make sure you review. You smash the subscribe button, and you keep listening and rocking with the podcast. We thank you so much. Veronica, you are officially off the hot seat.
Yay.